This podcast is proudly sponsored by Joro Protein, a Rhode Island plant-based protein supplement company designed for athletes and adventurers. They deliver 25 grams of protein, 5 grams of BCAAs, and 18 essential vitamins and minerals. It's non-GMO, it's gluten-free, it's allergen-free, no artificial flavors, no added sugar or stevia, and it has no additional gums, thickeners, or fillers. Right now, you can get 30% off on this podcast with the code JORO Rhody Strength 2022, and you can find them at joroprotein.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Phase CBD. That's P-H-A-Z-E. They are a local Rhode Island company who makes and manufactures a wide-ranging variety of CBD products that are formulated specifically for athletes. It doesn't matter if you're a CrossFitter, a strongman, bodybuilder, or powerlifter. These products are for you. These products range from tinctures to seltzers to even roll-on applicants. By supporting this business, you're supporting a local Rhode Island business and you're supporting this podcast directly. Please check them out at phasesports.com.
I just want to announce something new that we're doing. We are giving away bags of protein for select episodes. This is going to be your first opportunity to win a free bag of protein. The rules are you must like this post on Instagram. You must follow Strength and Sport and Joro Protein. That's at Strength and Sport and at Joro Protein. And as a bonus, you can share it on your story. Winner will be announced on Friday after the Wednesday podcast drop, and it will be announced on Strength and Sports IG story. We are live. What's going on, guys? Dr. Matt here, host of the Rhody Strength podcast. We are back in the CrossFit Providence studio. We have Bret with us today. Round three over at Elevate Dojo, and we have Serge with us today over from Mayo Quanchi. So, thanks for coming in, guys.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thanks for having us. I want to let everyone know that this is not brought to you, but could be brought to you by Thesis. I'm taking the Clarity brand right here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've seen one of these.
Yeah, you took one of these for the first one too,
yeah,
right?
that could have caused the issue because I took the creativity one, and that's probably why we're on the third podcast now.
Yeah, the creativity.
I took Clarity on this one.
Yeah.
Clarity. Oh, okay.
Maybe
That's great.
Maybe the hyper-creative person doesn't need to take creativity. Nootropics.
Dangerous things happen.
Took Clarity today. We'll see what
So
happens.
I'm going to give a brief intro on Serge because your first time being on. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. And if I screw anything up, please correct me. So Serge is a national judo champion, owner of Mayo Quanchi Judo and Wrestling. You've produced world-class competitors, national champions, and international champions in judo, as well as champions and high levels in wrestling. Pretty accurate there?
It's pretty good.
All right, sounds good. So my tradition is to ask a couple rapid-fire questions before we get started. I definitely shortened them up because I know we have a lot to talk about, but I have a couple questions for you. First question is, what's your favorite place? It could be Rhode Island or somewhere else to get a cup of coffee.
In Rhode Island, I would say the Starbucks
All right.
over near Home Depot. If I was just gonna,
Nice.
if I was just gonna go out and get a coffee, it'd be over there.
Perfect. What's your go-to? What do you do for coffee?
Just black.
Perfect. I like it. I'm the same.
I'm pretty simple.
That's good. Next question, we got favorite breakfast spot. The same thing, could be Rhode Island, could be somewhere else.
Oh, it used to be the Miss Cranston Diner, but I don't think they're open anymore. I think they might have closed.
They might have closed, but I
That place was amazing.
that place was great.
I don't know how they closed. I think COVID probably shut it down, but
Yeah, I mean it was cash only for a while too. I think. So.
yeah, it was It was an amazing place to eat. And then there's this place on Naughty Oak Road. There's maybe like 8 tables in the whole place. I don't remember the name of it, but they have some like statues out front. It's a little tiny place. And I don't remember the name, but they have a great breakfast over there too.
Huh.
All right, we'll find it, I guess.
That's
And
in
then
Cranston, too?
Wait, then there's another one. I think it's Dee's Breakfast Spot on Route 3 in Coventry. That place is good too. I've been there a few times lately, and it's pretty good. It's not bad.
I'm gonna have to head out to D's.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Next question we got. Any travel plans? Anywhere you've been recently, or any like places coming up that you're gonna be going to?
I'll be going to Fargo, North Dakota in about 2 weeks for obviously the Fargo tournament, which is
Cool.
one of the most prestigious wrestling tournaments in the country.
Awesome.
There's, I think, 6,000 to 7,000 wrestlers that attend it,
Wow.
and all the who's who of wrestling will be there.
Awesome. Very cool.
I will not be going to Fargo.
Rhode Island, I believe the number is 11, but it might be 13. But there's only ever been 11 placers from Rhode Island to place at that tournament.
Wow.
So
Okay.
you understand the significance of the tournament. It's pretty prestigious. Last year, Gabriel double All-American at that tournament.
Wow.
And he's the only Rhode Islander to ever double All-American there.
Wow.
Gabriel is his son.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's going again?
Yeah, he's
this year?
going again.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Last year he was the youngest in the bracket, so this year he'll be a little older in the bracket, so
Cool.
that'll be good for him.
Awesome. Very good. And then my last rapid fire, I shortened them right down. Any books that impacted you in the past, anything you're reading now, or anything you just liked recently? You're pretty wide open.
Believe it or not, I like to read fantasy.
Cool. Yeah.
I have enough of the real world every single day, so I like Eye of the World, Robert Jordan, that type of thing.
Cool.
The Wheel of Time series, read that, loved it. Really long-winded. You could tell Robert Jordan died before the end of it because it just changed a little bit with the last books.
Nice. I like that. That's a great answer. All right, so to start, I want to get into a little bit of your background. And obviously, Brett, you can add input or fill in the gaps wherever it comes, but how you were able to start, or how you got into maybe judo in general, and then how you got into Mayo Quanchi.
I started judo in August of 1974. I was 3 years old.
Wow, okay.
The only thing I remember about my first day was actually karate chopping the back seats of my parents' car, thinking that I was going to learn how to break boards and stuff.
Sure.
I was very excited about that, and then I got to practice, and someone threw me on the floor. I was like, what's going on here? I've basically been in love with the sport of judo my entire life.
Wow.
I never wanted to be a coach.
Sure.
It was not something that I sought out. It's kind of something that sought me out. When I started Mayo Quanchi, there were no kids practicing. It was basically just myself and some guys. I wanted to have workout partners.
Sure.
So we created a space in my parents' lumber company to work out in. And then we didn't really have mats. We had some canvas thrown on a wood floor or concrete floor, and it wasn't fun to fall on.
Sounds like it.
Then, and we were broke. I was only, I was in my really early 20s, so I didn't have any money to spend on mats and stuff like that. So we just kind of progressively, grew. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, I would love to take my nephews in to work out with you." I won't go into the whole backstory of that. I said, "Oh, well, all right. If they want to come, that's fine." And then I started. It was the Fontaine brothers that came, Chris, Jared, and Peter, and then Dylan and Derek Smith, and maybe just one or two other kids. I don't really remember their names. And it felt pretty good. It was showing a positive impact in their life. I was involved in their life. Then shortly after, my very first foster child, Barry Medeiros, came to the club. And I kind of found myself coaching. We started going to tournaments, and it was just a good feeling to see these kids. And it wasn't about winning tournaments. It was more about giving these kids a positive outlet and helping to guide and shape their lives. And the Fontaine brothers had great parents. They were really just salt of the earth people. But the dad worked a lot of hours. He'd work 2 or 3 jobs all the time. So we kind of filled in to help out where he needed us. And then, Barry, being my first foster child, one day we were at practice and the state was going to take him. They showed up to the practice. They were going to take him. Same thing happened with Bret's wife, Sandra. So I was only, I think, maybe 23 or 24 years old when I took in my first foster child. I keep telling him he was my experiment.
How old was Barry at the time?
He was 11.
It's just incredible.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing with an 11-year-old, but I did the best I could. I mean, he's still with me.
Yeah, that's very.
He's almost 40,
100%, yeah.
and he's still around at 40 years old. So he lives a couple of houses down in my wife's parents' old house.
Wow.
So I mean, he is my son.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word, he's my son. He talks to me every day. He'll come visit me at least 4 or 5 times a week, or I'll go to his house. Or, it was great to be able to take some kids. It was a great feeling to be able to take and use a skill I believe that God gave me, of being a coach, and put it to good use, and maybe change the lives of some kids that were not quite fortunate. It was better than winning any medal. Everybody wants to talk about all the medals Mayo Quanchi won, all the world team members, all the national team members, Youth Olympic Games, Caitlin placing at World Championships 3 times, as a junior. And I really think it pales in comparison to what the sport can actually do for a person.
Sure.
If you put all the weight of what you do into a medal, you're really selling everything short. And that's whether it's wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu. That goes across all combat sports, and the way it can benefit your life in a wholesome way.
Sure.
A lot of people see judo, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu as barbaric, but it's really not. Some of the best human beings I've ever met have been people that I fought on a mat, or people I've trained with. And obviously there's some bad eggs, but the general population of people are really good people that are wanting to share in that experience of changing kids' lives and being a wholesome, positive part of it. A lot of people. I'm going to change the subject a little bit if you guys don't mind. So I'm going to talk about long-term development of athletes. And there's too many people that are concentrating on winning medals at young ages. I've got news for you. Nobody cares who the elementary school national champion is. Nobody cares who the middle school national champion is. All these people that are overtraining their kids at young ages, they're not doing their kids a favor. I know everybody wants to win, but the people that take that "I want to win now" approach, they tend to fail in the long run. The kids burn out. The cutting weight, the training every day, the overtraining, it's just not good. It's not good physically. It's not good mentally. Kids need positive outlets. I'll give you an example. Gabriel is one of the better wrestlers in the country, in all ages. He's a phenomenal wrestler.
Sure.
I never took him out anywhere nationally to wrestle until maybe the 7th or 8th grade. And at that, in the 7th grade, I don't think we did much more than just go to Virginia Beach for Virginia Beach Nationals. And then he took the summer off and he would take his time. He played football, he played soccer, he did other things. He'd have a month off in the summer. I understood after enough years of watching people burn out from just being on the grind, your body can't take that for as many years as they want to do it for. So in wrestling, the goal is to wrestle in college.
Sure.
So many of these kids never make it to wrestling college. They can't wait to get out of wrestling by the time they're done with high school.
True.
It's serious because these kids are burnt out. They're burnt out because they've been cutting weight since they were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, that's tough on the body.
It's tough on your mind, never mind your body. The hypothalamus part of your brain is not even developed at that point. You can't handle the stress of those things. So you're taxing these kids' brains when you're forcing that the weight cutting and the need to win all the time, and we got to place everywhere we go. We got to go everywhere. We got to train like animals. It's just not. It's not productive and it's not healthy. Now, granted, there are some kids in the 7th grade that are ready to go. I have some kids in my club. I have I have probably a half a dozen kids that love to train. They actually love it. They don't need to be told, hey, do you want to go to practice? They're sitting at the front door waiting.
I was just going to echo that. I was going to say the major difference between Gabe and a lot of kids is like Gabe chose early. He's like, this is what I want to do. And the relationship and bonds from father and son, coach to student, like that's an amazing relationship that they have.
Yeah.
You never see friction between Gabe and Serge. And it's the same thing with these 7th graders. Like the coach can only guide people where they want to go. It's very hard to pressure people to another place if they don't make that decision for themselves.
Well, that's really one of the keys that I like to try to do is inspire the kids to think long term and think about what your goals are so that you can be a champion if that's what you decide, right?
Sure.
If that's what you decide. But you can get everything that you need to get out of wrestling and judo in life or jiu-jitsu without ever having to compete a day in your life. Like if we're really thinking about what these sports are meant for, yes, self-defense is great, but really it's about building the character of a person. Tournaments are good. I'm not going to say they're not. Pushing yourself and trying to be the best you can be, it's a good and healthy thing, but there is a point where you can make it unhealthy, and that's the thing that you want to try to avoid, is making it unhealthy. And there's not a lot of people that fully listen. I would say that most people don't fully listen. You're telling them what to do for their child, you're telling them what to do, you're advising them in the way that the path that you see fit, because if you're doing it for 30 years, 40 years, you may have a little more input than someone that's just excited to see their kid wrestle. But they hold the cards. As your kid starts getting better, they'll have other coaches, they'll have other people in their ear telling them, well, if you want to get better, this is what you got to do. To me, I'm like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Why don't listen to these other people that don't have any record of creating a champion or getting a kid through to the long run? There's a ton of false information. I'll give you an example. Sit down on a Sunday football game and you listen to all the professional people that never played football say what Bill Belichick should have done and what the quarterback should have done. They've never played football in my life. When their lives. When my friends ask me about football, I say, I have no idea. I don't know what they did wrong. That's not my forte.
It's fun to watch, but I can't say if he should have done this, he should have done that.
Yeah, but they do. People do. They sit there and they elaborate on how they could do things better. Not for nothing, but these guys are professionals that lived it their entire life.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you probably don't know more than them.
Yeah.
But they're willing to give that advice.
Sure.
I tell the kids in my club, be careful who you take advice from.
Sure.
They tend to want to take advice from their friends. And I tell them, your friends are no more qualified to give advice than you are.
Yeah.
The problem that you have with these kids, especially developing athletes, is they have to make decisions about their life and their sports career before they're qualified to make a decision about their life and their sports career.
Right.
And then who do they go to? They go to other people that they feel comfortable with, usually their friends and whoever tells them things that they want to hear, instead of getting advice from the proper people. I tell kids, you want advice? Talk to your mother and father first. Then if you want more advice, come over, I'll talk to you, I'll let you know. Don't ask your friends for advice, please.
Yeah.
Don't ask other coaches that you don't know for advice, please.
Yeah.
It's tough because people freely give advice, but they don't understand sometimes the impact that advice has on an athlete. A lot of times it's a negative.
Even as a young coach, I mean, I've only been coaching seriously for 7 years, and I don't know what seriously even means. You know, what does seriously mean? I mean, maybe putting time in on the mat, coaching people. I mean, that's just maybe as far as I've gotten, right? But, you know, I have 1 or 2 students, all of a sudden they say, well, I want to wrestle in college. I want to take it seriously now. And I'm like, check what time it is. I check their age, and I'm like, well, I wish you told me this 2 years ago. Like, we got 2 years left. So what do? Well, I mean, I could have all the ego in the world to think that I can tell them how to get there. I had him go talk to my father-in-law. Yeah. I was like, listen, I can't catch up 30, 40 years of coaching. Right. I'm at 7. Right? And so as much as I may have great ideas and I can see certain things, I see potential, I'm like, you know what? Before I tell this, you know, they're still kids. Before I give them all these ideas, like, let's balance this out a little bit.
Sure.
Let's go to someone that actually has been there and walked there. And then
that's the key. Choose who you get advice from.
Yeah.
Like, I do take advice from people. Sure. Brett and I had this conversation the other day. Remember I said to Brett, I said, listen, give advice when you're asked for it. Then people will listen.
Fair.
To me, I'm like, I'm not going to give you advice if you don't ask for it. If you ask me for advice, I'm happy to give it to you.
Yeah.
But I know darn well, after enough years of coaching, that if I'm talking to you and giving you advice and you're not asking me for advice, you're not going to listen to that advice anyway.
Yeah.
Because you think you've got it. You've got it on your own. You don't need advice. So I get that people oftentimes need to fail. Failure is part of sport. Failure is part of life. I've failed enough times. Like, I'm in a situation right now where I feel like I failed, and I'm licking my wounds, but I keep moving forward. That's the beauty of these sports. Like, you fail a million times. Fail, get up, keep going. That's what we're teaching our kids. Perseverance. They are learning. Like, I actually had a conversation with my wife not that long ago. And we were talking about something to do with our personal kids. And I said, Elizabeth, you know, we need to let them fail. We need to let them fail at times, because it teaches them about failure, about perseverance, about how to rethink yourself when you do fail. Failure is something that we need to teach athletes to deal with on all levels, and their parents too. A lot of times, the parents struggle the most with their child's failures, and then they tend to take it out on the child. Instead of saying, like, look, kid, you got knocked down, great, get up, let's go, you're doing a good job, well, you're going to keep going. Go ask the coach what you did wrong. Then you can work on it. I talk to the kids all the time about that. Be your best advocate. You make a mistake on the mat, keep it black and white. Try to keep the emotion out of it as much as possible. You fail, you get up, advocate for yourself, watch your video. It's very hard for kids to watch their own videos. They hate seeing themselves fail in videos. They really do. Nobody does.
Yeah.
Nobody does. Nobody wants to watch themselves fail, especially not on a video.
Yeah. Especially not in a combat sport.
Especially not in a combat sport. It's very humbling, and at times humiliating. You feel humiliated, but it's really not that. You know, if you talk about getting kids to not feel stress, one of the things that you need to learn to manage with a developing athlete is to not worry about what anybody else is thinking. You go around the class and you ask them, are you worried about what the people in the stands are thinking about you if you lose? You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed how many times that holds athletes back from trying to compete, because they're too afraid to fail, and they're too afraid of what everybody else is going to think. And those fears hold us back in life and everything that we do.
Sure, yeah.
All right, guys, I'll talk every minute of the time. I'll just blather on.
That's good.
On
That's
for
good
days.
And that brings me, I have a couple questions based on that. One is something you said earlier about you don't even need to compete to get most of what you need out of the sport, judo or jiu-jitsu. at what point would you say, I mean, I'm guessing I know the answer to this question, would you ever push someone towards like, hey, have you thought about competing? Or would you kind of let the athlete kind of decide that on themselves? Or when would you know when you're ready to compete as an athlete at the same time?
I always put the option out there to them.
Yeah.
I don't want you to misunderstand what I was saying, that I don't believe in competition.
Sure.
Because I think it's good and healthy for you if it's kept in the right light.
Right.
So I tell people, look, this is an option for you. You don't have to do it right away.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
'Cause people talk to me about this. Well, I don't know if I'm ready. Well, the minute that you know how to fall and the minute you know how to tap out, you're ready.
Yeah.
What is that I'm not ready thing mean? That you're going to be a world champion on day one? I'm sorry, that's not how it works, right? So I tell people, look, if you're not comfortable with competing, don't compete until you feel like you see that as an integral part of what you want to do.
Yeah.
You're naturally going to be afraid. Only stupid people are not afraid. You ever met? There's no such thing as bravery without fear. You ever met a person that's not afraid of something? Usually they end up dead.
Yeah.
Fear keeps you alive.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
People without fear do stupid stuff. They're driving down the highway at 200 miles an hour. They're cliff diving. They're doing whatever the hell is going on.
Yeah.
So, fear is good. So when you see people that are afraid to compete, it's your job to figure out what that fear is. What is my athlete afraid of with competition? Are you afraid of what somebody's going to think? Are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid of what your parents are going to think? Are you afraid of what the crowd thinks? Most of the fears are external. Most of the fears, they're afraid of what... They're not afraid of getting hurt. But I don't think I've gotten that response yet. I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt. I really don't think I've gotten that response.
That's good.
It's usually, what if I lose? What are people going to think? My friends are going to think different of me. My parents are going to be upset with me. They're going to be disappointed. I'm afraid to disappoint you as a coach. I'm afraid to... just all you have to do is get them to understand what their fear is and then teach them that bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is the belief that what you're doing is more important than the fear you're feeling, and you're going to go forward anyway, within reason. Doesn't mean I'm saying go jump off 200-foot cliffs.
Yeah, right.
But if you get people to start realizing what their fears are, it makes it easier for them to go forward and compete. But there are some people that have certain anxieties that prevent them from ever wanting to compete. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you can still train in the club and get everything that you need out of it.
Sure.
You really can. It might take longer, but you can still get there if you have the desire to get there.
Totally.
I had a fear of failure. There's no doubt about it. I didn't really, in my 20s, I didn't really know
Everybody
what it was.
does.
Well, I was so fearful.
I'm 51. I have a fear of failure.
But when I competed only very few times at very local tournaments, whether in California or in New England. And then something happened where I had a major fear of not winning all of a sudden. I don't know what it was. And then
Normal.
I had some major injuries, and it became, man, I don't know if I can go out there without being super injured. But I think back now, even having this conversation, I realized maybe the manifestation of fear was probably a fear of failing in other parts of my life, and it was appearing as a fear of failure for competing, because almost it'd be right in front of me, I had a potential to fail. I think a lot of it now, I think back now, is probably my brother Neil. I didn't want to fail Neil.
Yeah, that very well could be. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. I was in my mid-20s just trying to figure out why my back didn't work and why I was afraid of going out there and getting life done. But
Yeah.
bizarre
Wow.
land.
I think I almost challenge you guys a little bit with myself, because I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a little over a year now. Not super. I don't go every week, but I go as often as I can. I love the sport, and I have that the competitive drive, but I almost feel like, and I want to do it, and I know how to tap out. I know how to I think prevent injury within myself, but I almost feel like I want to feel more confident in my ability to maybe get that win before I step out onto the competition floor.
So your pride is holding you back.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pride is really something that you need to work on. That everybody does. We all
Sure.
have that pride. It holds you back.
Mm.
Like humility will get you further than pride ever will.
Mm.
And understanding that it's okay to lose.
Sure.
It's really okay to lose. It's really okay to fail. The fear of failure holds so many people back. Fear holds people back in general in life in a lot of different ways. It transcends the mat. But I can tell you this, when you learn to keep your pride in check and you humble yourself and then you push yourself from within, push yourself to compete, it will help you in life. It will transcend the mat also. It'll help you in every single thing you do because you have tamed that part of you that is self-destructive, and pride is one of those things that are self-destructive. So I've heard what you've just said a zillion times.
Yeah.
Like it's never, I've never heard I'm afraid of getting hurt.
Yeah.
It's always the same things.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just need to be told, look, it's okay. This is why you're feeling the way you feel.
Sure.
It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have doubts. It's okay. What's not okay is not going forward.
Sure.
That's what's not
Sure.
okay.
I like that.
Control yourself. Control your thoughts. We're all in control of our thoughts. We're in control of our actions. The only time we are not in control of our thoughts is when we allow ourselves to not be in control of our thoughts. But that's something that you can master. I know this. I think positive every day, regardless of what is happening. Did I have that skill my whole life? Certainly not. Certainly not. 10 years ago, I wasn't the same guy I am now. 20 years ago, I certainly wasn't the same guy I am now. 30 years, it was a far cry. Right? But I've humbled myself time and time again, and it's paid off big dividends for me. Like, I said I wanted to be one of the best coaches in the world. That was not an easy feat, but I knew what I needed to do. I wasn't a world champion. I wasn't on a world team. I wasn't really, in my mind, anything special. But I do believe God gave me a gift for mat sports.
Sure.
I believe that I've always been enthralled by it. I've always been fascinated by it and enjoyed to learn. I still enjoy to learn. I sit and think about how to get better all the time.
Sure. Sure.
As a man and as a coach and as an athlete. The athlete thing is I can't touch my toes right now, but
Gonna have to find ways to fix this.
I'm gonna pause for 1 second
Yeah.
just to find out what that beeping
That
is.
beeping noise
And then
is,
we'll be
yeah.
right back.
oh, that's great. I can't even hear a beeping noise through the ringing in my ears all the time.
I was gonna ask. I was like, so do you know there's this ringing noise in and out?
Yeah, I just shut that door. Alright, cool. Alright.
So, is it alright? Well,
go ahead.
is it alright if I ask a question? If you see a difference in developing adult versus youth athletes, or not even athletes, so let's just break down the students. That's two.
Yeah. You can ask whatever question you want.
Well, if you're on,
It's a free country.
yeah, but if you're on the next subject inside your mind, I don't want to interrupt.
Listen, I'm always on the next subject. Inside my mind, so
No.
if you wait till I'm not that. No, absolutely. Go
But
right.
I want to.
right ahead.
I have a few things I want to. All right. Well.
Alright, we're live. We're good.
Hey. I wanted to bring up something. I was coaching this past weekend at Tap Cancer Out. So I was there Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, youth athletes, and then Sunday were the adults. And I had a lot of adults that were very nervous about competing. But it was across all the ranks, white to black, actually, believe it or not. And for the white belt adults, even the blue belt, I say, make sure winning and losing isn't like your only major goal. That's pretty vague. There's a lot of ways to lose in jiu-jitsu and a lot of ways to win. Like the sport itself has win by points. You can win by submission. What submission? What takedown? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, some major wins would be like, can you hear my voice when you're out there?
Oh, yeah.
Can you even hear me? Am I even helpful? That's a pretty tall order. The next one is, can you make it to your second match? Like, you think you're going to be in great shape, but the amount of stress that you feel, plus the other beginner adult feels, somehow when you collide together, the exhaustion rate just goes through the roof between the stress of the two people in the match.
It's usually the stress that does
It's
it.
usually the stress. And
I mean, I know athletes that are in such phenomenal shape.
Yeah.
It's amazing. When they start feeling the stress, they're winded.
yes.
There's no doubt that happens. I've seen it 1,000 times.
I had an adult athlete, white belt, a guy in his 40s.
Sure.
He had 2 matches. One of them, he won the match, right? But to me, the winning was like, could hear my voice. I told him to like take a deep breath. He was able to take a deep breath. I'm like, these are major wins for someone that's really freaked out, really nervous.
Totally.
And then second match, I'm like, listen, you're going to be not feeling quite as nice as you were before. So even if you can just perform well, it's a big win. And he loses the match, even though he did a tremendous job. And he's sitting on the side. He's like breathing heavy. I was like, you should take the gi off. You're probably overheating right now. And he takes the gi off, and I'm like, you did a great job. And I'm telling him like, it's amazing you could hear me. You made it the second match. He's like, yeah. And I said, if they call your name though again, I want to let you know you had a great day. And he just looked at me. He's like, yeah, I'm just so tired. I was like, right, that's right. You are so tired, and you had a great day. You had a great day. And the person comes up to call them. He goes, okay. And I was like, you had a great day. He goes, what do you mean? And I was like, my job is to keep my athletes safe. You had a great day. This is the end of your day. It's going to stay great.
Yeah.
And he was like, it hurts. He looked at me. He's like, because he looked like he was quitting. I was like, you're not quitting. I'm telling you, you can't continue.
Right.
It's on me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'd just go out there and fight to the end. I'm a fighter. I was like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's great.
That's great.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Watch the fights.
Yeah, have fun. So those are things that happen.
Wow. No, that's really cool. So essentially, he was supposed to go on a fight, and you pulled him back and like, no, you're done.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, that's why I have a coach. That's why I have someone. If he can't listen to you, like, it's like, why are you even there? In a way.
Well,
pride.
Yeah.
That's a different subject.
I don't get in your way. You'll hear me talk about it a lot. Pride will make you go out on the mat again when you shouldn't.
Yeah, it's a great subject. It's like, why are you even there if the person's not going to listen to you? Like, well, I laugh because like, well, there's actually a lot of student athletes that don't listen, that think they're listening, as Serge was saying. Like, you'd be amazed. You're like, hey, and at some point, as a sensei coach, you're like, I don't think they want to be coached.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of kids, they physically can hear you, but the problem is, especially with the boys, girls tend to do a better job of being able to hear the coach on the side, but that's because a girl's medulla oblongata is a little bit bigger than a boy's. Boys are a little bit smaller, so it's hard for them to hear your voice and focus on the fight, and that takes time for that. That's an actual skill development thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I'll give you for instance. I said to the kid, one kid, I forget which one. I think it was Sam though. So I said, Sam, you didn't listen to me at all in that fight. He said, oh, I couldn't hear you. I said, you can't hear me? He said, no, I couldn't hear you at all. I said, really? Why? He said, it's loud in here. I said, okay. Do me a favor. Go get me that water. It was like 3 mat areas away. Go get me that water 3 mat areas away. So he gets to like the 3rd mat, and I go, hey, Sam. He turns around. He's like, what, Sensei? I said, you can hear me.
Hey, good morning. What's going on, dude? All right, we're just shooting a podcast right here.
Now we know what that noise is. The fire.
Yeah, I knew what it
department's
was as
here.
soon as I heard it.
Perfect. This podcast is brought to you by the Providence Fire Department, always keeping us safe. So
Yeah, that's good.
thank you. I don't think they're supporting us financially, but physically and spiritually.
Tell you what, you fall down outside and break your leg, you'll see how they support you.
There we go. Well, we can keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're right here. So Sam could hear you from 3 mats away.
He could hear me from 3 mats away, and I said, Sam, never mind. Come back. I don't need that water. I don't even think it was my water. But anyway. So he comes back. I said, Sam, so is it the same volume in this room? Is it the same volume that it was before? And Sam's like, yeah. I said, well, how come you could hear me from 3 mats away, but you couldn't hear me from 10 feet away? And he was like, just gave me this look. I said, it's not that you can't hear me, it's that you're not listening for my voice.
Yeah.
Because you're hyper-focused on the match. You need to learn to separate some of yourself to hear your coach, because I'm giving you information that you need to win. And that's where development's going to come, from the information that I give you. So you're going to be presented with all kinds of situations on a mat. And if you're not listening for your coach, you'll never hear him. Because once you get into, like, whether it be a fight-flight response, you're hyper-focused on that match. You're never going to hear the coach if you don't listen for him. And that means you're not going to get all the information that you need. Mm-hmm. With Gabriel now, I don't need to even raise my voice. Caitlin, Gabriel, a lot of our older athletes, I just talk.
Yeah.
I don't need to raise my voice. I talk. Whenever there's a break in the action, they'll look at me and I'll give a hand signal. I'll give them some type of signal to say where the openings are or where their weaknesses are. I'll tell them, I have little signals and stuff, like I'll take 2 fingers and put them up like I'm holding a peace sign, and I'll turn them back and forth like that. That means you're going to get a penalty if you don't turn into attack. You're going to get a passivity penalty and things like that, like Tayatoshi, Ogoshi, Seyanagi. I have all the hand signals, and the kids know the hand signals. It's great.
That's cool. Like a catcher in baseball.
Yeah.
Or catcher pitcher. Yeah.
Well, that's the exciting part. You have to spend so much time as a coach and sensei guiding in so many different aspects to get to that level. So by the time you get there, you're like, man, this is like enjoyable. It can be stressful too. But when you have to develop people from white belt or even beginner wrestler, you're like, wow, I'd really like it. It would be really great when they hear my voice.
Yeah.
Be really great when we get to the next stage of things. I was talking about the adults I was coaching. It was taxing as a coach, because I'm like, it's like wiggle your big toe, and like then they move like their left arm, and you're like, all right, well, all right. Then one of my athletes I've had for a while, Logan Reiner, hasn't competed in jiu-jitsu in like 5 years. I said, all right, can you do me a favor? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, could we like somewhat perform where we could potentially perform, like it would make my weekend a lot easier. It's been a tough weekend. He goes, okay. And I was like, listen, if you're going to try to throw anyone, everyone's freaked out about being thrown. Could you commit to the throw? Can you like not go halfway in the things I hate that you do? Like, could you just commit to the throw? It's like, yeah. Of course. And I was like, remember, straight down, not like over the top. Like we've talked about this before when you go into wrestling and then you do this thing and it drives me a little wacky. Yeah, I got it. I was like, all right. First thing he does, goes halfway in for throw, ducks in, and I almost get to leave. I'm like, I can't handle anymore. Like, I can't. He stops. He gets up. He looks at me. It's a process. He looks at me and goes, sorry. Sorry about that. And I was like,
it's a process.
Stop it. Stop. But, you have rapport where an athlete can look at you in the middle of fighting and be like, sorry. We just talked about
my
that.
Fault.
And he went on.
My bad.
Yeah.
By the way, I hate that saying.
Oh, yeah.
My bad.
Anyways, he strangles. He's 17, but we put him in the adult division. He strangles this guy. He gets up. He goes, yeah, sorry. He gets off the bat. He's like, yeah, sorry to freak you out a little bit there. Like, you were right. I'm not really paying attention. I was like, all right, well, let's pay attention to the next match. The next match, it's enjoyable. But what's happening is when you build rapport, jiu-jitsu is way less stressful than for an athlete and a coach than wrestling and judo. Like wrestling, especially judo, one mistake, that's all it takes, and that's it. Like one big throw, you're like, let's go home.
Yeah.
Let's go home.
Judo is a slip on a banana peel sport.
So when
I'm actually kind of disappointed with judo and the development and the direction it's going in. But go ahead with what you were saying.
Well, I want to go way deeper into that. Well, I'm coaching Logan because to me jiu-jitsu is way more relaxed. I'm more relaxed, and so is Logan. And so I'm joking during the coaching. But for Logan, he feeds off of it. And so I'm like, hey, he's doing that lapel thing, and you're doing that thing I asked you not to do. Don't let that guy do that evil stuff to you. That's some weird wizardy evil stuff. Knock it off. And I turn around. His coach is laughing. Everyone's laughing. And I realize, like, no one has ever seen a coach and athlete coach so bizarrely back and forth. Because Logan will nod, smile, and, like, give me a thumbs up. And, like, and I'm saying some crazy stuff.
Right.
And he's dismantling this poor blue belt who before looked like a world beater. And he's an adult. And he comes from a very renowned club. And Logan's up, like, 20-something points. In the last 30 seconds, I go, all right, Logan, it's time for the challenge. You have 30 seconds to submit him. Otherwise, time's up.
Yeah.
And Logan goes to stage 2, and that poor guy on his was like, oh, no, there was a stage 2. And so
There's another
Logan,
gear.
at the very end, he's got a submission on. He's got a Udigarami. He's got an Americana. And as he's turning it, and he's almost right at the tap, time. Logan wins the match. But how do you think he felt about the match? Disappointed.
Yeah.
He missed X amount of judo throws, and he didn't finish in 30 seconds when I gave him the command. It's for him. He's like watching the videos, like he's dialing through it. He wins, but that's not winning for him at that stage.
Right.
And so I think it's fascinating. So exciting for jiu-jitsu and exciting to talk about athletes. But we want to talk about where judo is heading, and I think similar things about.
I don't know if there's enough time in this podcast.
Wait, does that mean we're doing another podcast?
Might have.
I'd like to have a podcast. We could have.
Let me ask you, if you could pick one of those 3 sports,
Yeah.
not for yourself,
Yeah.
never mind for yourself, but for someone else,
Yeah.
which of the 3 sports would you pick? Judo, wrestling, or BJJ?
For like youth or adult, it doesn't matter.
For youth.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Wrestling,
How come?
get college scholarship.
Bingo.
Yeah.
There's added benefit.
Yeah.
There's added benefit. The amount of competition and exposure that you can get through wrestling dwarfs what you can get through judo or jiu-jitsu. Now, if you ask me what my first love and passion is, it's judo.
Sure.
But I never advise people anymore to do judo over wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
Yeah.
Even though for me it's my preferred sport.
I 100% agree with you.
Maybe not today's judo. Today's judo I'm not in love with. Judo today has turned into a game of penalties.
I enjoy the concepts.
They've turned judo into something that it's not. And then you'll hear these people, they talk about being purists. I'm a purist judo, just the best techniques. They want to do uchimata and all this stuff. I'm like, listen, buddy, a double leg takedown is in the Gokyu no Waza. So is a fireman's carry. They did all the leg grabs. They did everything. Kano had it in there. Who are you to decide what pure judo is? I want a well-rounded judo, not just with stand-up, but also with mat work.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
Judo's hyper-focus is what allowed BJJ, part of the reason, BJJ became so fruitful.
Oh, sure.
Because judo tends to fluctuate, and there was a time in judo when nobody even did mat work. Like you could, but nobody did it. They'd get in the turtle position, let you get on their back.
Yeah.
They know that the referee would stop it right away.
Yeah.
So they eliminated a whole part of judo, which is all of BJJ.
Yeah, 100%.
It's insane. If I was going to do, well, as I re-gear in the next few months, I'm switching over to freestyle judo with Steve Scott. I'm not even going to get involved with the Olympic movement again. I'm more interested in a well-rounded judo. Because there's not. So in judo, your parents spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars running around the country, fighting the same 10 kids, spending tens of thousands of dollars every year. For what? I mean, what is the point? They've marginalized judo so much now. I mean, some people say, oh, well, they're trying to make it more exciting. Well, to me, that's not exciting. Judo is never going to be a television sport. Neither is BJJ, and neither is wrestling. The majority of the world could not give 2 cents about wrestling, judo, or jiu-jitsu. None of them. The average person doesn't know and doesn't care. So why are we going to do all the crazy things that we're doing, and why are we going to participate in an art that is not inclusive? I could probably make the same gripe about BJJ. You see guys scooting around their butts after each other on the floor. Like they've eliminated a whole part of the art too.
Yes.
True.
I mean, I love them. I love all three of the sports. I've spent my entire lifetime in all three of those sports, and they're very much related to one another. It's not like I'm doing 3 sports that have nothing to do with one another. There's a lot of correlational value between all 3 sports. In fact, I think that cross-training in all of them helps all of them.
Yes.
You don't need to at the youth level focus just on wrestling. You don't. That's a fallacy. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that disagree with that statement, and they have the right to their opinion, but I think we have a lot of success to back up the statement.
Sure.
Right? And we have all these kids that cross-train in all 3 sports.
Yeah.
Right? Mayo Quanchi offers all 3 sports. We have plenty of kids that do all 3 sports. And it's funny, the kids that are doing all 3 sports have a very similar have something very similar. They all seem to be the ones on the top of the podium.
Yeah, 100%. I always, even at that jiu-jitsu tournament I was at, I'm watching all these people pull guard and hyper focus. I'm like, that's going to do nothing for you for the near future that's coming. There's these freak athletes coming. They're doing judo, wrestling, jiu-jitsu all the time, and they may not win the early stages of all 3. I'll give you a heads up. They will in the end, and there's no way you're going to catch up.
It doesn't matter where you start; it matters where you end.
Yeah.
So someone coming into, going back to what you said about you push people to do wrestling like youth, because obviously you get the scholarship there, you get more to it.
It's not just about the scholarship, though.
Yeah.
It's also just getting, and never mind the scholarship. Not a lot of people get the scholarship, but it's also getting into colleges that you would never get into.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Well,
Opens doors.
It's also free matches, you know. Like,
Oh, it's free. The schools pay for
schools
it.
pay for it. You get a bus
Once you
ride.
get into high school and college.
Yeah.
Before that, your parents are paying for all your terms.
Sure, but what if you have an athlete that starts it late in developmental? Maybe they did judo and jiu-jitsu just recreationally or lifestyle at the club, and then they make a decision like, I think I'd like to do this. A great coach has already developed a foundational level where you're like, well,
I've had a lot of kids in the club become state and New England champions in high school, and then go on to be successful college All-American wrestlers. They never started wrestling until the 9th or 10th grade, and the majority of what they did was judo, right? So you don't have to start with wrestling. I actually encourage people, even though I say that I push you to do wrestling, I encourage people to do some judo.
Sure.
I encourage people to start with judo.
yeah.
Whenever people ask me what would I do, I tell them I made my kids do judo for a year or 2 before I allowed them to start wrestling. I mean, if you look at Gabriel, it seems to be a pretty good formula.
And so they're essentially more well-rounded as an athlete.
Yeah, judo is harder to learn, and it's more of a finite skill. Wrestling is more of a gross motor action,
Okay.
right? I'm not saying it doesn't take skill, but it doesn't take the same skill to do a judo throw. So then eventually, I like to keep them well-rounded, and then come 8th grade, they need to make a choice. Like, which one do you want to focus on to become the best you can possibly be?
Sure.
And then instead of like having a well-rounded approach, that's when you start focusing 7th, 8th grade into the sport that you actually want to do the best in. Because you can't be great at all three.
Sure.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And not, at least not in that 4 years. of
Not
high
in that
school.
time frame.
Not in that time frame. I have another question for you right after this. about
Okay.
Time frames.
So, I think that starting with judo and doing some BJJ too is better than just starting with wrestling.
Gotcha. Okay.
Stick them in there for a year. Let them get used to it. Let them get used to turning into throws, going up, exposing their back to the person behind them, going up on their toe to finish an Uchimata or Haragoshi, or, getting all the little details in, and then transitioning into wrestling.
My question is, there's someone else, a close friend of yours, had this approach, but you would know more than me because you know him much more than I do. I've always seen that if you can introduce a judo or jiu-jitsu athlete to start taking wrestling a bit more seriously in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, to decide where they want to go. If they wanted to go to college with it and wrestle, I always think there was a person called Jimmy Pedro who went to Brown University.
Oh, Jimmy was amazing.
And he wrestled for 4 years. And when he finished wrestling, what are you now, 21, 22, 23, right?
Mm-hmm.
He jumped back into judo. I always think judo.
Well, Jimmy stayed in judo the whole time, though.
Well, wonderful. Was he traveling around competing?
Yeah.
So I don't have this.
Yeah, he
information.
still did everything that he needed to do. Jimmy is probably my favorite athlete ever, and he's a dear friend of mine. He's one of the best men I've ever met in my life. Like, bar none, I think Jimmy Pedro is one of the best humans on this planet. I mean, tough as nails. You want to see a guy tough as nails? That guy is tough as nails. And he has a moral compass like very few. He is just, I can't say enough. I could go on a while about Jimmy, but he's a very special person. He would grind. He was one of the hardest workers you'd ever meet in your life. Like, his ceiling was so high for work. And, sometimes people would try to knock his judo, say, oh, he's just scrappy or whatever. I'm like, you are an idiot. Why would you insult a guy like
say that?
Yeah. Jeez. Am I allowed to say stuff like that on this podcast?
Totally. Yep. You can go for it.
Scrappy, I wouldn't have.
Oh, Jimmy he was tough as nails. He would rip your arm right off.
He looks incredibly tough. I don't know if I would have considered his judo style as just scrappy.
Jimmy was super technical. He was super good.
Yeah, wow.
But he was also an animal. Like, if you got tired, you were in trouble. And Jimmy knew. Jimmy would know. I had several conversations with Jimmy. He'd watch someone just like take a breath, and then he'd say, "Oh, I got him." That guy was an amazing competitor.
Wow.
Yeah, the mindset, the physical work ethic. It takes the whole package.
So, continue.
It takes the whole package to get to a Jimmy Pedro level.
How was he able to wrestle at Brown University and continue his judo? Like, where did he?
They gave him the latitude to be able to do what needed to be done for.
How did he train judo while at Brown University? Did he go home? Did he have to go home to the dojo? Did he?
I can't answer that question.
Just fascinated by that.
Well, I can tell you that whatever needed to be done,
yeah, right on.
that guy would do it, regardless of what it was. Jimmy would train himself to death.
And that's an athlete that was coached many years by his own father as well.
Yeah, Big Jim. Big Jim's also produced a lot of other great athletes besides just Jimmy. And he had help from the Cohens. Jimmy had help from Neil Adams. His father was really good at getting him to the places that he needed to go in order to get him what he needed for experience. He did a really good job guiding Jimmy.
I think that's so. One of the major differences I've seen at the moment between jiu-jitsu, the culture of jiu-jitsu, and the culture of judo within the U.S. is that the great U.S. coaches and athletes knew it takes a tribe to make some of the best athletes, and it was very normal to send somebody to another dojo for not like a day at a time, but months at a time. Now, you might have some of that happen in jiu-jitsu based upon the affiliation of families and dojos, but it was not uncommon to send someone to a different dojo that wasn't, I mean, almost no dojos are affiliated yet. I mean, I think Serge is going to be one of the few that actually has more than one judo dojo so far underneath his banner.
I think, how many do you think we're going to have by next year?
Well, by next year, 4 at least.
There'll be 4 Mayo Quanchis
Yeah,
next
at
year.
least 4, I would assume. Yeah, minimum.
Yeah, well, that's minimum.
Yeah, minimum. I'm being conservative about this.
Sure.
Minimum, yeah.
We're going to hold back on any of the announcements of what's
I'm getting all excited now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's huge. And from listening to your podcast, Chop Suey, Judo Chop Suey.
Yeah.
I know you had talked about how a lot of people, probably all sports are very competitive. They're like, oh, there's not enough people to go around. But you kind of have the exact total opposite outlook of like, okay, there's plenty of people out there who need to learn martial arts. Not even that would benefit, like they need to learn this. And that also comes from, you talk about it later, but you basically live that lesson of like fostering in those kids and helping them through martial arts. But I guess to talk about, you don't feel like it's competitive for other coaches to open up gyms, or even you're helping to open up the gyms to almost just like spread like, hey, let's make this a thing.
My children have dojos of their own now, and we're going to be opening up more. But I don't agree with the way people start. Judo's changed a lot. There's a lot of drama now on the national level in judo. There's not much reciprocation. People are forgetting why we're doing what we're doing. One of my biggest heroes in judo is Anne Maria DeMars. Do you know Dr. DeMars?
No.
It's Ronda Rousey's mother.
Oh, okay.
She is another one of those just exceptional human beings that she's our first female world champion. Maybe our first world champion. Period.
She was the first champion, period, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's a savage. She's running a company now called 7th Generation Games, which is amazing. Anybody interested in martial arts can and should look her up, look up her company, look what she does. It's Dr. Anne Maria DeMars. She really understands judo, and she really understands the good that can be done through judo. And this is a woman that does not need to spend another day of her life doing judo. And she spends time in judo with these kids from Yonkers. I believe it's Yonkers.
Compers Judo.
Compers.
G.
Gompers.
Yes.
I got that wrong.
Oh, Yonkers.
Well, I am deaf, so yeah, Gompers.
Yeah.
But she I talk to her all the time on the phone. Some of the best advice I've ever gotten as a coach, I got from Anne Maria. The woman is just like sharp as a tack, and really doesn't give a shit what anybody thinks. She cares about people.
Sure.
But if you're a jackass, you have zero standing in her book. You can't affect her whatsoever. It doesn't matter what you say.
Right.
Like I have gotten some of the best advice in coaching from her. One time she said to me, "Why are you being nice to these people?" I was like, "Well, I'm trying to."
I can hear her saying that. By
Yeah.
the way. I can hear her voice.
She says to me, "Serge, you don't have to be nice. You have to be right. You're right. So stop being nice."
That's great.
I'm like, you know what? And what's really funny is they didn't get it until I stopped being nice. When I stopped being nice, I was like, I should have listened to her earlier. This went on for like weeks. I could have just cut that guy's head off and then be done with it.
I first met Anne Maria DeMars. I was in California. I'm like a white belt, adult white belt. I'm like probably like 20, 21. I'm probably annoying, right? I'm probably uncoachable. I'm probably all these things. Maybe still uncoachable. I don't know. And I say to somebody like, oh yeah, I'm from Rhode Island, and this really intense woman whips around in my face like, you're from Rhode Island? And I was like, yes, yeah, yep.
Not the usual response yet.
She's like, you know Serge? I was like, he's actually the reason why I'm here. He told me to come to this dojo. Yes, I'm learning from Serge. And she's like, oh, good. I'm calling him right now. I expect you to win. And I was like, oh, my gosh. What's going on? I'm Anne Maria DeMars. And I said, that name seems a little familiar. He goes, well, it should be. I'm world champ. And I was like, oh, okay. I might have stepped in something accidentally.
That's hilarious.
But because I said I was learning from Serge, she took me under her wing. She sought me out. She came back out. It's a far drive all the way to Gold's Judo. And she was coming out there. She didn't have to do that. She was down in Santa Monica. And she would invite me places and hang out. She bought me a sandwich.
Oh, that's
once
the kind
when I
of
was
person
starving.
she is.
So.
Listen, that's the kind of person she is. I've seen that woman fly across the country because she found out some little girl said, this story might be a little bit off, just so you know. It's not going to be perfect, but this is the gist of the story.
Sure.
Some little girl said all she wanted for her birthday or some such thing was for Anne Maria to come and do a clinic. On her own dime, she flew across the country and went and did that clinic because she found out about that little girl. That's the kind of woman that she is.
Wow.
Like whenever I was going through a hard time recently, she was the first person to call me and say, keep your head up. Just keep your head up, keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other. I'll tell you, judo is lucky to have that woman. She doesn't need judo. Judo needs Anne Maria.
Sometimes people find out, like, I know Rhonda Rousey, I trained with her a little bit, and so they want to always ask about Rhonda. I was like, I'll be quite frank, I knew her mom more. Her mom was nicer to me.
Yeah. Rhonda's a peach. I love Rhonda.
I love Rhonda, but Rhonda was close to my age at the time, and she
got on the mat with her, so her job was to try to kill you.
Exactly. Oh man!
But I know Rhonda as the sweet girl that would, when she was at my house, would make me strawberry daiquiris because she was trying to learn how to be a bartender. She's the sweetest person that you've ever seen.
Wow.
Well, everybody has this, like, everybody has this, not everybody, but a lot of people have this image that Rhonda's like this mean person because of what you see on TV and all this other stuff. It can't be further from the truth as to who Rhonda actually is.
She was one of the best coaches for little kids I've ever seen.
Yeah,
that was incredible. She's
just one of the best people. I tend to really favor Rhonda because just I've known her for so long, and she's just always been so good to me and my children and her mother. Like, there's a lot of respect there.
I'm going to share a quick story I had with Rhonda and Maria. It was back to back. It was a very interesting dynamic, and it's kind of explains a little bit their dynamic too. Anne Maria's like, well, I want you to do randori with Rhonda. I trust you. You won't do anything crazy to hurt her. I was like, of course. I'm doing randori. And wouldn't you know it, I do something, and I go, oh, I think that's illegal. You know, in wrestling, when you pick up a leg and you step across.
Yeah.
Super illegal.
Forward trip.
And I'm moving, and my foot goes in front for a moment, and I rip it away. I'm like, oh, shoot, I think it's illegal. Rhonda stopped what she was doing to let me know how she felt about that move. And I'm like...
scarred for life.
I'm just so apologetic. I'm like, oh, no, I would never try to do that. I'm so sorry. And she was just like, she went off. And I'm just like, okay, so what do you think happened next? I'm like, I'm not doing anything to make her A, matter, or B, potentially hurt. And so she ragdolled me. I'm getting messed up. Like, there's no way around. I'm like, this is just the way it goes. I sit down, because she could.
Yeah.
Like,
he couldn't avoid it. He couldn't avoid it anyway.
Yeah, let's be frank. I wasn't going to win either. Let's be... But it just got meaner, you know. Things just ramped up. It went from like, oh, I'm learning, to like, This is not learning.
I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm dying.
I'm not learning anymore.
Does anybody know CPR?
Right.
I sit down on the sideline, and Anne Maria's looking at me, and now I think she's mad at me because of whatever happened with Rhonda. And Anne Maria looks at me and looks at Rhonda. She goes, "What was that? You were terrible out there." And I was like, "Right, now she's mad at me because I'm terrible, and Rhonda's mad at me because I'm terrible."
I'm an idiot and I'm terrible. I'm an idiot.
I thought you were supposed to be good. Everybody told you you were supposed to be good at judo. It was awful.
Oh my god.
I'm like, wow.
Whoops. So she teaches judo as well, Rhonda?
Rhonda, no.
She's very busy right
No,
now.
she's busy. She's doing WWE stuff. She has
Oh,
her own
that's
little
right.
farm. Matter of fact, I got some people in my dojo that have started buying meat from her farm. I forgot to send her a text to say.
That's cool.
Yeah, they've got these.
Can we plug the farm? Are we allowed to do that? Or is she selling it to everyone or not really?
I don't remember the name of the farm.
Rhonda's farm.
Rhonda's farm.
No. Hold on, we got to figure this out now.
I'll type
You have to
Yeah,
understand. So
we have to give her a plug.
Serge used to be one of Rhonda's senseis and coaches as well.
Not really.
Well, a sensei is more than just.
Yeah,
I mean, she still calls you.
her mom calls me.
All right. Oh, so we're in the same boat.
Well, she'll return a text. Hey, and she does send me tickets when she's in town.
That's very true. Yeah.
Browsey Acres.
Rousey Acres, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah, great.
Browsey.
Browsey?
Browsey.
Acres. They added a B to Rousey.
Travis Brown.
Browsy.
Oh, okay.
So,
Gotcha. Cool.
now, did she call you when she said she wanted to do MMA? I remember when she was in California, she would tell me, she's like, I want to stop.
We were
all this
actually
judo
in,
stuff.
we were actually in Tunisia at the time. We were in Africa when she told me.
Amazing.
I think it was one of her last judo tournaments. She told me she wanted to do MMA. I told her she was crazy. She's beautiful. I'm like,
Yeah.
why do you want your face punched in? She's like, I'm gonna get rich. I actually apologized to her because I didn't believe that it was gonna happen. So she proved me wrong. I actually have a video of me on my knees saying, "Rhonda, I am so sorry about you doing UFC." Like, she
so
proved me and everybody in the world wrong.
Yeah.
She's just something, that kid.
I remember when she wanted to quit judo, and she was trying to explain this stuff. I mean,
I wanted her to go to college.
She wanted to jump out of the helicopters in Alaska. What's the name of that stuff where you jump in and save people in the water? It's not Coast Guard. It's something else, right?
It's something like that. I know what you're talking about.
Pararescue.
Yeah. Yep.
And so she was telling me on the mat, she was like, I don't want to do. Everyone wants me to move to Japan. I don't want to go to Japan. I want to stay. I want to stick around. And I was just like, well, I think, Ronnie, you should do whatever you think you need to do. And then UFC. So good for her.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about what we would do for youth athletes. And while wrestling gave such promise, if we could start people in judo, it helps them learn. For adults, I always try to plead with people to start jiu-jitsu first. I'm almost pleading. A person comes in their 30s, hey, I want to learn judo. I'm like, can you start with jiu-jitsu first?
Yeah.
Maybe start on the ground,
Right.
get a little stronger, build some confidence up.
We talked about this a little while ago about the movements of the fundamental movements of
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
of jiu-jitsu would when we're learned correctly
Yes.
are going to transfer very well and are much safer.
Well, it's the movements on the ground, the major foundational movements, right? You're thinking of bridging, shrimping, rising, shrimping, back heisting, hip heisting.
Sure.
If you just flip the body up like this,
Yeah.
you'd be amazed what all the judo throws look like.
Yeah.
Foundationally, you need to be able to be in this bridging position. And if I flip myself onto a wall on the ground, you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way it could be the same. It's like, well, I'm afraid so. I go to lift for like maybe a seonagi, and you're like, boy, that looks like a proper shrimp. The lifting motion, and you can't tell people this in the beginning. People just want to learn things. But
Right. Gentlemen, I have to leave in a few minutes.
Okay.
oh, you know what that means?
We'll wrap it up.
Another podcast. We gotta schedule another podcast.
Hey, it's been awesome to have you on.
All right.
Let's end with just one last topic, I guess. We can save it for another time too, because I did want to quickly get into kind of the fostering that you had done over the years. If you have time, if not, we can sign.
Yeah, I'll talk
another
about
time.
that for a few minutes. I got like 10 minutes.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Could take like 3 days.
Yeah, totally. I guess so. I get started off with what made you want to, I guess, go down that route, and then how did you use judo to, I guess, basically complement that to help these kids?
If you would have told me 30 years ago that I was going to foster 50 children, I would have told you were crazy. So it's kind of just like let go and let God. Mm-hmm. So my first foster child was Barry Medeiros, who is still in my life, and most of them still are in my life.
Sure.
Right? And I say 50 foster children, but they're not 50 kids that stayed at my house permanently. Some kids were there for a month or 6 months or 2 years. There's been a handful that stayed a lifetime. And I still am in contact with almost all of them. Like, some of them have moved out of state, but there's been so many kids that come to live with me. And the first one started with Barry because I think people can oftentimes be judged who they are in a moment. So I had a moment with Barry where I had a decision to make, and I was a young kid, and it was a huge responsibility to take in this little boy. And I ended up taking in his brother too. Billy and Barry are identical twins. Billy didn't stay with me for as long as Barry did. But I had a decision to make in an instant, knowing that was going to change my life and how I lived it. But I would absolutely do it all over again. I am, if you ask me about whatever my accomplishments are with judo, wrestling, BJJ, what have you, it really has nothing to do with winning any medal. I couldn't care less about the medals or the notoriety or any of that baloney. If you want to judge me on what I've done and trying to, not always being successful, but trying to make the world a better place around me and using my sport ability to enhance that. Judo and wrestling has been my main focus. We have BJJ, but it's not my main focus. It provided an infrastructure for these kids to have boundaries and discipline and a lot of things that they missed in their lives. Taking in foster kids, they're very damaged for the most part. And when most people talk to me about taking in foster kids, I listen to what they have to say, and 9 out of 10 times I tell people don't do it. Because you have a fantasy in your head about what it's going to be like, and it's certainly not that. It's not a fantasy. It's a lot of really hard work, and taking these kids in, they're damaged. And people will judge you for the actions of the damaged kids that you take in. They will. They 100% will. And that's something that I would do it all over again. Regardless of what people say, I would try to help every one of those people again. Now, would I do some things differently with them? Yes, I think that I tried too hard with some of them. And I think that I've learned that if you're not going to try as hard as I'm trying for you, then I'm not willing to walk a road with you that's going to bring me and you down. So that would be the one thing I try, but I'd do differently. But I would do it all over again in a minute. And a lot of people don't realize the impact that you can have in sport is profound, especially in mat sports. I'm not too fond of a lot of the hierarchical belt stuff and all that. I think there's some kind of weirdness there that is definitely used in different ways that are not healthy at times. There's a lot of people with rank that don't deserve it. There's a lot of people that use their rank to manipulate or do things that they shouldn't do. So, that's one of the downsides of that stuff. But the ability to reach a kid and provide an infrastructure to him that they've never had in their life, and teach them work ethic and discipline and good pride, have pride in their proper pride in their actions.
Sure.
That's really something that you get to take for your lifetime. If you could change just one life, you know, you ever hear about that when you throw a pebble in the water? If you can change just one life, what does that mean? What does that mean for society? What does that mean for your soul? What does that mean for that person's future generations? You know, for me, I'm a very I don't want to say the word religion, because I'm not really
Spiritual, maybe?
No, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I'm a Christian, but religion to me kind of has a negative meaning. So for me, it's my faith in God that I believe that He's put trials in my life. You know, you wonder why God gives you difficulties, and I know that He's put these kids in my life, and I know that He's put other people in my life to even help me with these kids. But a lot of coaches don't realize, and you don't have to foster 50 kids, but if it's on your radar to be able to provide something to kids that that need it, you know, that's a gift that God gives you and an opportunity that God gives you. So at Mayo Quanchi, if you cannot afford to go to Mayo Quanchi, you will not come to Mayo Quanchi. For 20 years, I ran Mayo Quanchi and never took the money out of it. I'd put it back in the program and use it to bring kids around the country. Police officers do not have to pay to come to Mayo Quanchi. Their children do, but they do not. That's something that we do as a public service, because I believe, and I know Bret doesn't agree with me on that. He thinks that I should charge them, but for me, I'm like, there's a lot more important things than life, and we have to remember what our mission is. What is your mission? Why are you coaching? Is it to win medals? Is it to win lives? Is it to better the community? Is it all of the above? And you got to kind of have a mission statement that you want to follow. I have just recently, I turned down my first child ever. I felt like I was not in a position right now to take this kid and his sister in. And it's the first time it was humbling. It was really actually very heartbreaking for me to say, no, we cannot take those two kids. I am sorry. Even though we have one of their siblings is living with us. We have one of them as a foster child, but I couldn't take the other two at this time.
Sure.
So, you know, if you're coaching and you want to feel fulfilled as a coach, you can win all the medals in the world, but it's not going to compare to that one kid that you changed their lives. And then they acknowledge it and they love you for it and you love them back. Like, that is the best gift you could ever give me. Because like growing up, right? You have when you're raising kids, I have 4 biological children of my own, and I worked at a place called Tides Family Services for years. And I understand that there's a natural breaking away process that happens for parents and their biological children. So a lot of times what tends to happen when you have a foster child and they get to that age where they start having to break away, they look for the reason to break away and it becomes a negative thing. So there comes a point in time where your relationship with them becomes strained. Whereas when you have kids and they start the breaking away process, and college is a good buffer because kids start by going away to college, right? But when kids go through a breaking away process, it's like they've got to come up with ways to justify why it's time for them to leave. I mean, later on it will become ridiculous to them. Boy, and I can't tell you how many times that I've heard this. I'm sorry I was such an asshole. But in my mind, I'm like, yeah, well, it's pretty normal. It's the breaking away process that kids go through to move on. But so the judo and the wrestling, they have a time limit. So most people quit judo and wrestling at some point. And it's not even that they don't love judo and wrestling. It's just that life becomes too complicated and difficult and diversified. You know, when you're getting out of college and you're first getting your job, you don't have vacation time. You're tired. You're low on the totem pole. You're having to work a zillion hours. You're the bottom step. And then next thing you know, after you're starting to get through that, you're having kids. And then life gets really hard and hectic, and once you have children. And so people tend to drift away, like the majority of people drift away, because they can't balance that. They can't balance going to the club every day and being married and having children. They don't have that time in their life. But what I've noticed now is that so many people are taking their children back to Mayo Quanchi because it was a positive thing for them. We've had a lot of those
That's really cool.
people lately. And, you know, I hear that story multiple times. You did so much for me in my life, and I want that for my own children too. And that's a really great feeling. Mm-hmm. And I think that all coaches should start thinking about why they're doing what they're doing. And you don't have to take in 50 foster children. That's just where God put me.
Sure.
If you would have told me at 25 years old that I was going to take in all these kids and spend my life savings on them, I would have said, you are nuts. I'm not doing any such thing. I never even wanted to be a coach. Just something that happened. I still don't know if I want to be a coach.
Just kind of fell into...
No, I do. I'm only kidding. I love coaching, and I am thankful for the relationships I develop on the mat. And some of them have turned bad, obviously, but
Yeah.
but 99.9% of them have been good people, and I'm thankful.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna ask my ending question, which I ask everyone, which is kind of a tricky question, but so it comes from Tim Ferriss. So if you have a billboard on 95, if you have your like a favorite quote, mantra, and some people they're like, I don't really have anything, which is fine, we can move on. But kind of like the last I guess point or thing you can say is like, okay, you have a billboard on 95. Everybody driving down 95 Rhode Island gets to see it. So it's not like a message maybe to your community or Rhode Islanders. I don't know if you have something like off the top of your head.
Be better than you were yesterday.
Awesome. I like it. Good stuff. Well, hey, we'll get you out of here, Serge. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
That was awesome. That was a great conversation. And thank you, Bret.
We'll do it again
round 3.
anytime you want. You
Absolutely.
just let me know.
Thank you so much. Cool. Rhody Strength, you're signing off. Cool. Good stuff.
Well, I'm glad I did this morning.
Hey, appreciate it.
Now I'm going back into my... No, I'm actually going to a sawmill right now. I'm running to my house, and then I'm heading over to a sawmill with Andrew Matera. Oh, wow. I'm going to talk to him about sawing some trees for